Well, we've got gloves and a nail curing thing. That can only mean one thing. We're 3D printing.
What's up everyone, my name is Biku and I'm back with another keycap video. So if you watched one of my previous videos, you'll know that I reverse engineered and modeled a keycap for a Cherry MX compatible mechanical keyboard switch. So that's what we have here. I have two designs, one with the curved top, and this one is the normal a flat top. It's not really the most common for a keyboard, but it does make it easier to, in modeling software, it makes it easier to put something on the keycap, either imprinting or embossing into the keycap. So because the last keys that I did on FDM 3D printing, they came out well and they fit, but the only issue is you couldn't do too much detail on top of the keyboard, on top of the keycap. And one of the really cool things with 3D printing is you can do whatever you want, but with stuff this small, you can't really do it with FDM. But recently I got a SLA 3D printer, and the detail possible on those is a completely different story. So what I am attempting to do today is to reprint these custom 3D printed keycaps with some custom designs embossed in them to see how well it'll come out. So I've done a couple already, but let's do one more that we're going to do now. So we're going to start by creating a sketch on the plane. So once we've made a sketch here, what we're going to do then is insert a SVG. Now I have done a video before on my custom made cookie cutters on how to create custom SVGs, so you can watch that video if you want to know how to make an SVG file out of a normal black and white picture, but I have made one now. So if we go to the master ball, we'll see that's, okay, first of all that's Pokemon Pokeball, master ball. But as we can see, that is definitely not going to fit on the keycap, so let's do a custom scale of about 0.1 probably. So let's do a scale of, about 0.1. Let's see how close that gets us. That's pretty close for what we're going to want. Maybe we can go up a little bit to something like 0.15. Ah yes, fusion and its strangeness. So because we repositioned ourselves, it reset the scale. So let's try more like a 1.1 now. Yeah, that looks about like what we want, so let's confirm that. Now we want the external perimeter of this, but you can see the picture that I got the the SVG of, sorry, is a little bit incomplete, so we'll just do some now we should be left with a nice design that we can emboss into the keycaps. So if we click E, we can choose what we want to extrude. So we want to go with all that. And then what I find works a bit better on a keycap is if we do a emboss. And because it's very, very small stuff, I'm just going to go down with 0.2 millimeters. And then we can see we get that nice embossing of our design onto the keycap. And you can realistically do anything you want, because this is a SLA 3D printer, we've got a fair amount of detail to play with. So now that we've got that, we can just go and export it as an XDL. Call that master ball. So now if we open Chi2 box, which is the Creality LD R's LD002R's the designated slicer. You see I've already gotten one over there ready, a nice sunflower. Let's import the rest of the models that we're going to do. So because of the way that SLA on specifically DLP SLA 3D printing works, as long as all of the models on your build plates are exactly the same height, adding more and more and more doesn't change the print time at all, because it's doing a layer at a time regardless. So if we do 6 at a time, it's going to take the same amount of time as if we do 1 at a time. So let me just show you all the designs that we're doing. So we've got a escape logo for the escape key. We've got a couple Star Wars Empire and Rebellion logos. We've got a Master Chief. It's not the most obvious right now, but that's Master Chief over there. And then there is the Pokeball that we just did. So with keycaps, I have already done a bit of a test run, and 3D printing the keycaps works okay, although I've realized that for the support we're going to have to be a bit more careful, because the test run that I did came out a little bit warped, so we're going to have to reinforce the support a little bit. So let's start. This unfortunately you have to do one by one, and Cheetu Box is still strange as ever, but we're going to do an angle at about there. So let's do all of them. I think. Okay, so they're all about the same. Now we need to start adding these supports. So unfortunately, this takes a while. But basically what you want to do, specifically for something like this, where you've got very, very fine walls and fine detail, what I'm going to do is for the perimeter, because on the test keycap I found that these walls warped a bit. I'm going to add extra supports to the walls by using the medium support tower setting. So we're going to stagger them a bit so that we've got a bit more support across the whole of the wall, because ideally we want to keep as much detail as possible. And on the test that I did, these walls came out a little bit rounded, so they didn't come out quite how they should have been, but that's fine. That's what testing is for. So again, I'm going to stagger it across just so that it hopefully is a bit more rigid as it prints. When I did the test, I did these with the small or with the light support tower setting, so hopefully with the thicker one it's going to help a bit more. Also, what I found when I was doing the test is that in the corners it tended to get a bit washed out. Now, one thing I'm hoping that with adding all the support, I'm hoping it doesn't do, is that it becomes a little bit of a mess once we've taken all the support off. But because this is at the bottom and you're not really going to see it, it's more important for it to hold its rigidity than the bottom looking a little bit ugly. So now that we've done that, next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to change over to the light settings so that we can do the internal, what would you call it, pillar, if you will. I found that this actually printed quite well just by adding in one support on each of the edges. So that actually printed pretty well. And then since these are going to be at quite an angle, we're going to add a couple of these to help out there. And last but not least, we need to support these. So that should be enough to support all of that. So if we look at our finished support, you can see it's fairly well covered. Looks like it will print well. Now we have to do that for the remaining 4. So let's do a time lapse of me adding support to all of these. Okay, that took a very long time, but as you can see now everything is laid out. Let's just space everything out a bit better. Now we've got all of our keycaps done. This would be a lot easier if you wanted to print like 6 of the same keycap, because then you could just do it for 1 and then duplicate it. But if you're doing 6 different things, that takes a painful amount of time, if I'm honest. Although, if you're wondering why I'm not using auto support, if you watch my other video about the trials and tribulations of using Keycaps, you'll notice that auto support sucks. It really doesn't do a good job. So it is better to do it yourself, just so that you make sure. So let's click slice. This is the newer version of Keycaps, the newest version, and it still has a lot of the same issues that I complained about with the older versions. And as you can see here, this is one of the very nice things about SLA 3D printing, because even though there's 6 of them, it's still only going to take about an hour and a half to do all 6, which is the same amount of time as it would have taken to do just 1. So let's get it printing, and then we'll be back after that.
Now I know this is probably going to look rather strange to you if you're not from where I am. This is methylated spirits, and methylated spirits, as far as I can tell, in other countries is usually not purple, but in this country there's a bit of issues with the substance, so they try and make it as non-appealing as possible. But anyway, now what we've just done is we have 3D printed all 6 of the keycaps, and I've just popped them off the bed into this. Methylated spirits is basically just treated ethanol or isopropanol, I'm not too sure. But it's a treated alcohol that's, I'm not too sure exactly why it's treated, but it is, for all intents and purposes, for this purpose, it's used to clean off the remaining resin. And what I'm doing is I'm just moving the parts around, because I don't have a proper washing station, just to get the remaining resin off. So these are the keycaps that we've just printed. Let's pull one out. This is actually the first time that I've seen any of them. That actually looks quite good. Now, from what I've learned, it is actually better, if at all possible, to break off the, well, you can see some little boogers hanging off. It's probably getting around time to clean my bed in the 3D printer. Oh well, I'm not too sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but there you can see the Star Wars Empire logo. Let's try and break the supports off. A more or less full review of the printer that I recently got is going to be coming soon. This is just one of the projects I thought fit the printer and what it can do pretty well. Like I said earlier, I've changed to using a bit of a thicker support, so it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to get it all off cleanly, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And anyway, inside here is not the most structurally critical part of these. Just give that a wash. And yes, anytime you're working with resin, especially this kind of resin, you're going to want to wear gloves. Definitely wear gloves. I think that's the majority of this one cleaned out. because it's a clear resin, it doesn't show up as obvious on camera, but there you can see there's that logo there. I think these would take well to be being painted. Also, I think the profile actually came out a lot cleaner now that I'm using the thicker support. Definitely. I'll show you the original test model that I used. You can see just how rough that one is. Now it's better to remove the supports off of these before you cure it, because once you've cured it, it's a lot more solid. Now wait 1 second. Just got a piece of cardboard there just to hold, so I'm not putting it on my mouse pad. Let's see what we got next. And there we go. Now I can take this away. So now that we've got all of our keycaps, let's have a look. This is the sunflower. Yeah, it's still busy drying out a bit there. I think that they're actually probably going to be curing pretty well just with the light coming from the light that I've got here. But we're also definitely going to run them through a curing cycle, and that is why the nail dryer thing is here. So if you don't know, these things are awesome. So this is just like a UV nail curing thing, and it'll cure UV prints just fine, because if you don't know, nail polish, acrylic, no, I think it's acrylic nail polish anyway, some nail polishes cure with UV light. It's basically the exact same thing as SLA 3D printing resin. So we'll be back in a little bit once those are cured. Flip them around. Okay, so they've all gone through their drying process. Little issues in some places, but overall I'm very happy. So there's the escape logo slash gonna be an escape key. There is the Galactic Empire symbol. I was a bit worried when I first took it out because of the way the spirits was covering it. It looked like it wasn't even there. But as you can see, there's a sunflower. There is the Master Chief. There is the Alliance logo. And there's a Pokeball, specifically the Master Ball. You can even make out the M. This is not the first time I've done resin keycaps. I can show you the first attempt. First attempt was this one. And as you can see, it's very warped at the bottom. The corners, well, it's got some issues down there, and that's all because of the supports. But if you have a look at these, it's a little bit rough because the supports are a bit bigger, but it's a lot more even, and this can be cleaned off pretty easily. And overall, very happy. This one does fit on a keyboard. The actual internal bit is quite nice. Let me confirm that these indeed fit on a keyboard. As I hope you can see, this is indeed a keyboard. It's not the cleanest keyboard ever, but it's a keyboard nonetheless. Now, I've not done this before. This is the first time I'm trying to put them on. And ooh, there you go. Fits on. And let me just confirm it is indeed working on the computer. So this one does work. Let's try this one. That indeed works. This one works. This one works. This one, ooh, that one was a little bit crunchy. That one would probably need some cleaning. Oh, no, there you go. That one works. And last but not least, probably where this one is going to live, on the escape key. I think that is a resounding success, considering I only just started doing this today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. This has basically just been me playing around with my new toy and trying to find new ways to use it. I am very seriously considering building or making my whole keyboard a custom resin printed keycap set. So if you want to see that sometime in the future, the review of the printer that printed these is going to be coming somewhat shortly, so stay tuned for that as well. I hope you enjoyed watching, and goodbye.